A killer on the run. The prison walls were built to be impenetrable. The guards were trained to be ruthless. The security measures were designed to be foolproof. And yet, one man, one of the most dangerous prisoners ever held, managed to do the impossible. He outsmarted an entire system designed to keep him locked away forever. This wasn't just a simple escape. It was a carefully orchestrated plan, executed with precision, patience, and an understanding of human nature that left even the most seasoned intelligence officers baffled. For months, the authorities had believed they had him under control. He was locked in a high-security facility, surrounded by armed guards, monitored by cameras, and confined by thick concrete walls. But this prisoner was no ordinary criminal. He wasn't just a man who had broken the law. He was a man who had broken every expectation of what was possible inside a prison. His mind worked like a machine, constantly analyzing, constantly calculating, constantly searching for the one weakness in the system that would set him free. Then, one day, it happened. The alarms blared through the prison, sending guards running in every direction. Control rooms buzzed with frantic radio calls. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. By the time the officers reached his cell, their worst fear had come true. It was empty. He was gone. Vanished into the night, leaving behind only questions, confusion, and a deep sense of unease. How had he done it? How had he slipped through a system designed to be unbreakable? Had he planned this for years, manipulating people and circumstances until the perfect moment arrived? Or had he simply seized an opportunity that no one else would have dared to take? More importantly, where was he now? As the world woke up to the shocking news of his escape, intelligence agencies, police forces, and governments scrambled to track him down. This wasn't just a fugitive on the run. This was a killer who had outwitted some of the sharpest minds in law enforcement. His escape wasn't just an embarrassment, it was a warning. Because if he had done the impossible once, who was to say he wouldn't do it again? The hunt had begun. But the real question was he already too far ahead, the criminal's dark past? Before he became the most wanted fugitive in the world, he was already a name that struck fear into the hearts of many. His crimes were not ordinary. They were brutal, calculated, and executed with a precision that suggested he was no ordinary criminal. He was a killer, but not just any killer. His methods were meticulous, his actions deliberate, and his ability to evade capture, at least until his initial arrest, was nothing short of extraordinary. Authorities first took notice of him after a series of murders that seemed almost impossible to solve. Victims disappeared without a trace, and when their bodies were eventually found, they bore no immediate signs of struggle. But forensic experts soon discovered chilling details. Each crime was carefully planned to leave behind minimal evidence. He studied his victims, learned their routines, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. It was as if he enjoyed the intellectual challenge of the hunt just as much as the kill itself. Psychologists who later analyzed his case debated his true nature. Was he a cold, calculating genius who enjoyed outwitting law enforcement? Or was he a man driven by uncontrollable impulses, giving in to violent urges he could no longer suppress? The truth, perhaps, lay somewhere in between. He possessed an uncanny ability to manipulate those around him, whether it was his victims, law enforcement officers, or even fellow inmates. He could charm, deceive, and when necessary, intimidate his way through almost any situation. But what truly set him apart was his mind. He wasn't just another criminal who acted on instinct. He was a strategist. He thought several steps ahead, analyzing every possible outcome before making a move. Even in prison, he never stopped planning, never stopped watching, never stopped waiting. Some prison officials noted that he was eerily calm, as if he knew something they didn't. And in hindsight, maybe he did. His intelligence made him all the more dangerous. This wasn't someone who would simply break out of prison and go into hiding. He had a plan, one that no one saw coming. He had already escaped once, and now that he was free, one question remained. What was he planning next? The prison break. A master plan. The prison was a fortress, high walls, multiple security checkpoints, and guards who never let their guard down. Every movement was tracked, every inmate accounted for. Yet somehow, he found a way out. His escape wasn't a reckless dash for freedom. It was a methodical, well-planned operation that took months, maybe even years, to execute. From the moment he arrived at the prison, he studied everything: the guards' routines, the camera placements, the timing of security checks. He was patient, waiting for the smallest crack in the system. He found that crack in places no one else would have thought to look. A blind spot in a camera's coverage, a lazy guard who became too comfortable, a routine inspection that could be exploited. But he didn't do it alone, at least not entirely. There were whispers that he had help, either from inside the prison or from someone on the outside. Some believed he had bribed a guard, while others thought he manipulated fellow inmates into doing his bidding. Perhaps he had planted someone in the system long before his arrest, ensuring that when the time came, he had an advantage. The day of the escape, everything seemed normal until it wasn't. Guards conducting their routine head count found his cell empty. At first, they thought it was a mistake. He couldn't have vanished. But as they searched the prison, it became clear. He was gone. The control room erupted into chaos. Sirens blared. Officers rushed to check security footage, only to find something chilling. There was no clear footage of his escape. Somehow he had managed to avoid every camera, every checkpoint, every obstacle designed to keep him inside. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Intelligence agencies were immediately alerted. Within hours, a nationwide manhunt was launched. Airports, train stations, and highways were locked down, but there was no sign of him. The authorities had underestimated him once, and now they were paying the price. But the scariest part? He had planned this from the beginning. Every move, every decision, every interaction had been part of a larger strategy. And now that he was free, one terrifying question remained. What was he going to do next? The moment the prison realized he was gone, chaos erupted. Officers scrambled to seal exits. Helicopters hovered over the surrounding areas, and roadblocks were set up in every direction. But it was already too late. He was gone, vanished without a trace. The authorities had been blindsided, and they knew they had to act fast. Within hours, intelligence agencies and law enforcement launched one of the largest manhunts in history. His face was plastered across news stations, wanted posters, and digital billboards. Every airport, train station, and border checkpoint was put on high alert. But despite their swift response, they had one major problem. No one knew where he had gone. Some believed he had crossed international borders within hours of his escape. Given his intelligence and planning skills, it was possible he had an exit strategy in place long before he even set foot in prison. Fake passports, hidden money stashes, and a network of contacts, everything might have been arranged in advance. If he had help from organized crime syndicates, he could have disappeared into a country where extradition was nearly impossible. Others theorized that he had gone underground, hiding in plain sight. A man like him knew how to blend in, how to change his appearance, how to disappear into the chaos of everyday life. Disguises, forged identities, and altered physical features could have made it nearly impossible to track him down. Was he posing as a construction worker, a truck driver, a drifter moving from town to town? No one knew for sure. Despite their best efforts, the authorities found themselves always one step behind. Every tip led to a dead end. Every sighting turned into a false lead. He had anticipated their every move. It was as if he had studied the art of evasion just as thoroughly as he had studied his escape. As weeks turned into months, the case grew colder. Law enforcement refused to give up, but deep down they knew the truth. He was no ordinary fugitive. He was a ghost, a shadow that slipped through their fingers. But one thing was certain. A man like him wouldn't just run and hide forever. He had a plan, a purpose, and when he resurfaced, the world would once again be forced to face the nightmare they had tried so hard to forget. For months, perhaps even years, law enforcement agencies across multiple countries remained on high alert. His escape had not only embarrassed the authorities, but had also instilled fear in the public. This wasn't just another fugitive on the run. This was a highly intelligent, methodical killer who had already proven he could outmaneuver the best in the business. Every now and then, reports would surface. Unconfirmed sightings in different cities, CCTV footage of a man resembling him boarding a train, whispers in the criminal underworld that he was still active. But every lead ended in frustration. If he was still out there, he was covering his tracks flawlessly. Then one day, a breakthrough. A routine traffic stop, a minor slip-up, or a careless mistake. Whatever it was, it led law enforcement straight to him. Maybe he had let his guard down, or maybe someone from his past had betrayed him. Either way, after years of searching, he was finally in custody. When officers surrounded him, he didn't panic. He didn't run. He simply